Welcome back to Wise Men Company, everybody. I'm Ben, and we're going to talk about this AR budget build I did. Cheap guns are kind of like boxed wine. You know, they're not exactly classy, they don't really taste good, but they get the job done. I built this gun extremely cheaply. I did it all under 400 bucks. And you guys can too, and we'll get into the components so you guys can kind of see what I did here. But the big question is kind of why I did this. And the reason why was because I just had parts lying around that weren't doing anything, and that drives me crazy. So I decided to build a kind of older classic carbine because I don't have anything like this particular style. This is a 16-inch carbine gas AR-15, nothing fancy here at all. But this is a gun that runs really well despite its price, despite some of the components that you guys might find questionable. But it runs great. It's awesome. Love it so far. Don't have a ton of rounds through it. Probably have like 250 through the whole thing, which isn't a ton, but no hiccups thus far. I figured it would be a good investment in the long term. I always say to people, the best way to combat some of this legal legislation that constantly gets thrown around the gun community is to buy more stuff. The more of this stuff that gets into circulation, the harder it's going to be to regulate it, confiscate it, find out who has it in the long run, in the future. So buying this kind of stuff is a great way to combat future legislation. Also, of course, contact your senators and congressmen, all that jazz, blah, blah, blah. You all know that drill. All right, so this is a rainy day carbine. Probably won't shoot it a ton. Like I said, it works, but this isn't my preferred setup, but it is a cheap setup. So let's get into the components. Keep this in mind. A lot of the stuff on here I traded for, so it was zero out-of-pocket cost for me. Now, if you want to do something similar, you will be right in that $400 range. You might have to make some sacrifices on some things, but a $400 price point is extremely doable for this kind of setup. So let's get into the components. The upper is from Palmetto State Armory, and I spent $280 shipped, complete. Bolt carrier group and charging handle. There was no rear sight in that upper. I'll get into that in a second. But this whole upper, 280 bucks. Came with a plastic handguard. I put on this Troy handguard, which I got in a trade. Again, zero out-of-pocket cost for me. So I threw that on there, and I have this upper with a Daniel Defense rear sight. Again, got in a trade. So zero out-of-pocket cost for me. You could do a cheaper option back here. You know, the cheap Magpul plastic flip-ups would work perfectly fine. Not ideal, but you're gonna save some money that way. The flashlight is not included in this build. I just had it on here out of necessity. All right, so that's the upper. Let's get into the lower. Back, B5 system stock. Love these stocks, got it in a trade. Guys, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to use social media to your advantage to trade. There's a lot of people out there that want what you have, and maybe you don't want something or want something else. So you can trade away on social media. B5 system stock, zero out-of-pocket cost. The lower receiver I got for free as a gift. You could get an Anderson lower receiver. Sometimes you can get them as low as 30 bucks depending on the sale. And they have always worked great for me. Anderson Manufacturing, they have made a ton of those receivers, and they've always been great for me. So check out those. The components for the lower receiver are just spare parts I had lying around from previous builds. All mil-spec components, standard stock trigger, heavy, gritty, but what do you expect? The grip I actually bought. I think I got it for 15 bucks. It's a Magpul grip. It was used, saved some money that way, and threw it on here. Better than the plastic standard A2 type grips that you see on carbines. Just a little bit more comfortable and a little more vertical, and that's how I like it. Up front here, this is a Knights Armament vertical grip. It's plastic, it's polymer. Got this in a trade. Actually traded my old CZ Scorpion rail for this grip. Some guy wanted my old rail. I needed a vertical grip. I traded. Lastly, yes, I painted this. This is rattle can. It's not Cerakote. I rattle can all my guns. It's fun. I don't do anything special or fancy to it. I literally drag this out into the garage, take a can of spray paint, spray it down, throw some sort of pattern over it, spray it again, and then voila, it's painted. So yeah, this stuff's gonna come off, it's gonna chip, but I think it looks cool as this starts to wear. So there you go, those are the components. Very straightforward, very simple. I've seen Palmetto State Armory run deals where you can get everything but the lower receiver in one buy for well under 400 bucks. So all you do is you buy a lower receiver, or if you have one already lying around, just buy the kit and put everything together, and you have an AR-15 for well under 400 bucks. There's also a lot of other great companies out there that are making it easy to do these types of budget builds. You just gotta do your homework, check around, and usually it'll pay off for you. Now, I know what you guys are gonna say. You're thinking, well, that seems a little bit more than $400. Yes, if I wouldn't have traded stuff for some of these components, it would have been a little bit more than $400. So there are some disadvantages to a build like this. Obviously, long-term endurance. Will this gun hold up? The components aren't as good, and this is just the flat-out truth. The components aren't as good as your BCM, your Daniel Defense. That's why they're cheaper, for the most part. So, will this gun have a 200,000 round lifespan on it? Probably not, but I mean, who shoots 200,000 rounds on a gun? There's not many people that do that out there. So, not a huge thing to worry about, but longevity is definitely a concern when you're building a cheaper budget AR. Performance. This thing obviously just has iron sights. Great out to 200 yards. No problem for me, and I'm talking personally, out to 200 yards. Would I like to put a red dot on it and be able to stretch out to 3 to 5? Absolutely. So I'm losing a little performance by keeping this pretty stock. Trigger, very stock, very gritty, heavy. Lose a little performance there. Some of you might say, well, that's not a big deal, and it really isn't. But for those of you that like to squeeze every ounce out of their gun, this is just not going to compare to the Lancers out there and the BCMs. It's just not. Lastly, you're going to lose on style points. You're not going to get anybody hooting and hollering over your Palmetto State upper. It's just not. They're a dime a dozen. Everybody has them. And if that's something you're concerned about, looking cool for the gram, this isn't the route. It really isn't. But who cares, right? These budget guns are fun. They're great for a rainy day. You know, for me, I have kids. I don't know what the political climate's going to be in 20 years, but it would be nice if I could hand down a rifle to my kids, or 2 or 10, and not have to look back and say like, oh man, I wish I would have bought that way back then because it was so cheap, or it was X price back in the day. You know, we always say like, the good old days are today in the gun industry, because this stuff doesn't get cheaper. It doesn't get, for the most part, it doesn't get cheaper. It doesn't get more available. We're constantly under attack from whether the political agenda or time. And so if you're gonna get this stuff, I would get it now. And you won't regret it in the long run. So in conclusion, guys, this is just another rainy day gun for me. I had some parts lying around. I had a little bit of capital, a little coin in my pocket, so I decided to build a gun for days to come. I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. This is not hard to do, and again, if you're smart, if you know people that want to trade, social media is a great spot to trade this kind of stuff. You can get the cost down on these significantly. It would kind of be a cool contest to see who can build one the cheapest. If you have any comments or questions on this build, please leave them down below. Be happy to answer them. Guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button and share it with your buddies. As always, go check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Got a lot of great content over there. And if you want to support Wise Men Company, please go to our website. We got a lot of cool gear over there. New products, we got swag. Get yourself a t-shirt, get yourself a hat. Whatever floats your boat. Go check us out at wisemancompany.com. We appreciate every bit of support. See you on the next video. If you guys want to double the price of your gun in literally under a second, just do this. Bam! More than the gun.